Hello and hello everyone to the final interview of this series. I don't know where it has gone. It has been all magical. And my final guest today is certified facilitator of access consciousness, Maya Dayan. She's a globetrotter, but for now, she is in Toronto. And I want to ask her so many things. Actually, it's a topic we haven't covered, and on this global perspectives on presumptive and reactive realities. She is a magical parent. I have been, witnessing her sharing her journey all around the world with her children. I met the children, they are magical unicorns. And the one topic that traps us the most is in relationships, of course, but also parenting. And I wonder, since this topic came about, into our awareness, the need of reactive realities, especially every day, I'm in awe with what I discover. What has been your journey like? After this topic came about, you are beyond this reality, parent, but still,
Thank you. Wow. Okay. So, first of all, I kind of read through again the presumptive realities and native reactive realities definition, quote unquote. And one thing that they mention about presumptive realities is like this is the way. That's how everybody's doing it. Therefore, I just kind of go and do it without asking a lot of questions.
Mhm.
And I can say that I guess that's the point in where parenting was my entry into consciousness and question, because a lot of things that were the way things are or the way they do things did not seem like it would work for me, and I just asked a lot of questions. And also I thought about it today, as you know, we have these topics or perspective we're about to talk to, and then we kind of get awarenesses. It's like parenting is really like conscious leadership in the sense of, well, if you choose to do it differently, you have to be willing to be on your own. You have
Mhm.
to be willing to trust yourself. You have to be willing for no one to align and agree with you, or, approve of your choices. And it's such a wild ride because there's so many presumptive realities about parenting. Let's say each culture is a bit different, but if we kind of take that middle ground of, I don't know, a developed country
Mhm.
who has progressed medical realities, there are certain similarities to most of the
Mhm.
countries of like what is so with parenting. And yeah, everything you choose beyond that is pretty much going beyond presumptive reality.
That is, yeah, so true. And your children were young, I assume, when you started Access, right?
Yeah, I was pregnant with my second,
Uh-huh.
and my first was 3.5. So it was really that entry point where parenting was my main, my main, I don't know, thesis in life. Like
Uh-huh.
that's what I was doing. That's what I was focused on. I was reading a lot of books about parenting. I was asking a lot of questions about parenting. I was, of course, also doing a lot of automatic responses with parenting. We always try the best of to our ability, but and then it was a huge gift to have like the first child without access, quote unquote, and then the second child with the tools of access, and just kind of seeing how much more relaxation and different choices I could choose. And I mean, even with my first child, I was kind of labeled as very different with my choice. But um, I guess one difference is that at that point you're doing it more from the resistance and reaction, like, oh, they're doing this, then I'll go to
Mhm.
the other side of the
Yeah.
polarity, or like if this is wrong in my eyes, then this is right. Like it's still a lot of fight
Yeah.
to choose to do different parenting when consciousness is not involved. And
Yeah.
then you can still choose different choices, or you can choose, I don't know, you can choose a C-section from consciousness, and it still gives you, it just gives you more relaxation space.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. I yeah, I remember my child is a grown up now, but when I gave birth to her and was raising her alone in the United States, in a way I was blessed that no grandparents were around. We were just me and my then husband. But I remember how much of a struggle it was still to raise her the way I knew that would fit her, not about parenting. I had no idea about parenting, but I could read her energy. I could sense what she required, and everything that was not anything approvable to this reality. And I had to. My first struggle was I was always in reaction to everyone to keep myself afoot, to keep
Right.
myself, to preserve my own sort of quote unquote. There is nothing to preserve, but I didn't have the tools, and I remember how much of a struggle it was, being in constant reaction to people's judgments. As you said, you have to be willing, not to be approved. Yeah, you have to be willing to be judged, and just be interesting point of view about it.
I
How?
mean, one of the first books there that you're kind of exposed to is literally called like What to Expect When You're
Yeah,
Expecting.
exactly.
So it's like expectation, 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 and everywhere you're outside of those imagined lines, you're already not fitting. And um, there is a sense of like, oh, I want to be good, like I want to be the parent who's done everything they can, so if I'm not following these whatever
Mm-hmm.
crazy guidelines, ideas, I don't know, if my baby's not eating every 2 hours like she says, but eating one time 6 hours, one time 4 hours, I'm already wrong. Like,
And for those who don't know, actually, I really admire Maya as a parent, in the sense that you are homeschooling your children, right? And she is so beyond this realities, rules and regulations about parenting. And she's inspirational as a parent. But within this journey, what did you learn? About parenting the way you're doing it, or what is the main tool you're using to keep to keep it going?
Uh, which is really funny because that's a great example, because homeschooling is a bit beyond people's scope. So immediately they have to be like, oh, I could never do that, which is already you kind of defending
Yeah.
your choice, which I, of course, have no opinion if you don't want to choose. I'm like, good for you for choosing what it
Yeah.
worked for you. And it is like, it is a lot of work. It is, that you're committed to way more time and energy with your kids than you are if you send them to school. Again, like, no, there's no formula of what will work. Um, I'm extremely grateful for Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here and everything I've heard
Mm-hmm.
of them speaking of parenting. And it wasn't necessarily in a parenting class or anything. Like, I remember a lot of being exposed to a lot of new ideas through Voice America, which you can
Mm-hmm.
find all those recordings
Yeah.
still on voiceamerica.com. But he was talking about like his daughter grazing and not having 3 meals a day, or like asking them what do they know, or even the concept of them being an infinite being in a small body is such a shift compared to like, this is a little creature that I have to protect.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Mm-hmm.
suddenly, I wouldn't call it equal because we still in this reality, like I'm the grown up, I'm here to guide them and raise them, etc. But like, even that is such a shift in
Mm-hmm.
how we address our kids, even like when I looking at them as big beings in small bodies, it includes like even them not being my child is an angel, like, they
Yeah.
can do a lot of stuff, and I can acknowledge like, oh, they actually chose very deliberately to do this right now, you know what I mean? Like, it gives you more of an equal conversation with them.
Yeah.
um, and yeah, like a lot of freedom also includes a lot of clarity on my side. Like when I say I need to do a video and it will not work for me, that there's noise in the house right now, I honestly, like 95% of the time, I will receive this peace and silence. And it's because of that constant communication, respect,
Hmm.
choosing the tools, like, they know that if I say I'm going to deliver something, I mean it, and it goes
Hmm.
both ways. So also when I request something like that, it comes from that similar energy. And that's really from using the tools of access. I don't really have a different way to put it, because I remember, for instance, like there's a lot of conversation, just as one example of like weaning your child. If it's from the bottle or from the pacifier or from the nursing, no matter what, weaning is hard.
Yeah.
Exhausting. You wean them and then they're back, like almost like, stopping drugs and alcohol. And it's like, it's basically from that space of we've never taught to be so congruent with the energy and with our choices, and therefore of course it shows up in parenting as well. So the more clear we get about our energy and our choices, then
Hmm.
parenting can be easy as well.
Yeah, and there's no one formula to raise a child. Every being is unique, and so are our children. When you look at them and perceive that they are definitely an infinite being in a small body, then you give them that unique approach. No, for those you have two children, and you know each one of them are so different. And for those who have multiple children, no, no one formula would work ever. And I think it is the first time I heard and read through Access, asking children, "What do you know?" and empowering them to know that they know. This is the target of Access. We start with Access Bars classes. It is to empower people to know what they know, but also our children to, by asking what if when when they're in confusion or when they require some sort of help, asking them, "What do you know?" How much empowering is there, and in that very simple sentence, and giving them their uniqueness and that they are capable of everything.
One of my little favorite anecdotes around that was, one time my daughter asked me why my mom and my dad don't live together. And immediately you start thinking like, oh, just all these normal thoughts of like, what am I going to tell her? Blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, what do you know? And she described this, elaborate story of like, my dad likes to live in the village and my mom likes to live, like, she just had her own beautiful light version of whatever we would call the truth. And she was
Mhm.
so happy with herself.
Uh-huh.
And like I was like, oh wow, I just enjoyed her perspective. The story didn't really matter, but it was just this beautiful space of like, if I would have went into like the trying to explain, and it could have gone to such a drama.
Truly, yeah. Wow. And when you adapt it to your life choices, because again, this reality says you have to be somewhere for a while, you have to do work here and there. When you adapt this conversation to your life choices, what would you like to tell the listeners? Because as far as I
um
know, Maya, just to explain little, she chooses to live wherever the energy she follows. The energy is what I perceive. Maybe there's something else in it. I read your posting actually today about you moving to Toronto. It was really interesting to read.
yeah.
And every day we discover something somewhere we presume at least one thing in a day, but more
Totally.
usually, and how we are in reactive realities. How does living beyond this reality actually in your life choices, if you would summarize it as an inspiration?
If I can, again, I guess through examples, like one example is like that any park we ever, playground that we got to anywhere in the world, and it doesn't matter what languages the children spoke, all they did was like, hi, hi, and they were off to play. So there,
Yes.
we have a lot of presumptive realities of what friendship, for instance, looks like, or that kids miss people or
Hmm.
don't miss people. And I guess my kids are a very interesting example of they don't really know what it is to miss.
Hmm.
They don't have that so much in their vocabulary. They don't speak about missing anybody. They do have sometimes reference to people that they spend more time with in a certain location, but it's never from a space of loss.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So that was one. And again, and it's just these discoveries that as long as you assume it has to be a certain way, you don't really have space for something else to
Yeah,
be there.
yeah. What once you said about they don't have that in their vocabulary, it just pinged how much of that is a learned behavior and emotions and feelings and thoughts we have learned from our parents, that when something ends, when the time comes that you are no longer there or the person is no longer there, that missing is the appropriate emotion. And once you don't have that and you just live an interesting point of view, how much more possibilities emerge and how much more you are open to more magic to enter your life.
Another example was my daughter with a bicycle, for instance. Like she's very athletic just naturally.
Uh,
And I think I even noticed myself assuming or presuming how many times it takes you to try to to start like riding perfectly. And then I was like, why would I think that? And she literally, she went on the bike one time and she was riding a bike.
Whoa.
So I guess there's a lot of element of question.
Yeah, yeah. How amazing is that? And it is written, we have an X-Men specialty class in Access, and you can dive into it. I'm just telling it to the listeners to learn more about Access children, X-Men children whose perceptions are beyond sensitivity, as it called in this reality. Most of them are labeled as extremely sensitive or other autistic or dyslexic or other labels. You can learn more even if they're not that. One book that taught me a lot, even though my daughter is grown up, is You Cannot Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree. I would highly suggest that book to every parent or everyone who is dealing with children. I'm sure you must have read it, and just wanted to say that before we close it. It is an amazing book about beyond this reality, being together with children.
Yeah, I think actually during my first energetic synthesis of being, she was about 5, and I am immediately through what Dr. Dane was facilitating there, I realized that she would be immediately labeled ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, like all the things.
Hmm.
And again, it's not that that's the only choice. You can choose a lot of
Yeah.
alternative ways in the system, but like she now reads it probably books that are like the level of a 14, 15-year old, and she's just
Hmm.
doing this on her own volition. And she would have not had that freedom
And she has
through
done a
school.
little storybook, actually, right? I
And she
have.
wrote a book. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
How amazing is that when we really step out of their way and be in the question and be empowering, not disempowering by our fears and distractor implants, as we call it, fears, thoughts, emotions. And thank you so much, Maya, for being here. And it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you, everyone. Seeing now or in the future. Uh, See you somewhere in the world. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for your amazing series.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Right.